been a while since I've talked about Destiny 2, about 6 months actually, and a lot has happened in that time. Season of Rivals saw the darkness return to our solar system. The Traveler finally healed itself after the damage it took in the Red War and Vanilla Destiny 2. Many of the planets we've been exploring for years were sunset, but we did see the return of some old destinations from Destiny 1. We gained powers of the darkness and explored the icy moon of Europa. And now in the last 2 seasons, people who were once our enemies are now our friends. It truly is a weird time in Destiny at the moment. The last 6 months hasn't exactly been smooth sailing at all, but before I get into it, let's start from the top. Firstly, how was Season of Arrivals, and was Beyond Light a good expansion? Season of Arrivals was a bit of an outlier in Destiny 2 because the season was extended for months and months since Beyond Light was delayed to November instead of launching in September. So while Arrivals was fun, it did go through a bit of a dry spell towards the end of the season as no new content was being added to the game. Obviously COVID did a real number on Bungie, the employees working from home as well as trying to develop a new expansion. It's understandable that the season was extended. And if I'm being honest, I really enjoyed the Season of Arrivals content. We introduced the Umbral engrams, which allowed players to focus the engrams with a specific weapon or armor type, so they could try to get the perks they wanted on their weapons and armor. We were given a new exotic traced rifle, the Ruinous Effigy, which still to this day is one of my favourite weapons in Destiny. Too bad Bungie nerfed it into Oblivion with Beyond Light, in which every encounter was basically a purple light show with the occasional exploding orb. Arrivals also felt at the beginning of something new in Destiny. Bungie announced that with the launch of Beyond Light, the planets Titan, Mercury, Mars and Io were going to disappear, which meant that a bunch of strikes, Crucible maps and Gambit maps and raids were being taken away and thrown into the content vault. So the last few months of the Season of Arrivals felt like a farewell to the planets that we've been exploring for years. And a lot of the community was upset that these planets were being vaulted, mostly because most of the planets were part of a DLC content that had been released just after Destiny 2's launch. So people felt like the thing they had paid for was being taken away from them. On the other side, these DLCs had been made free for months beforehand when Shadowkeep released, so everyone was playing that content anyway. But this content was old by then, and most of us were sick of playing it. I hated running through the same areas on Mercury and Mars and doing the same activities over and over again, so in the end I was glad we were moving on to something different. By the end of Season of Arrivals, Bungie had sent us on a best of quest for each planet being vaulted. It felt like one last hurrah before they were gone forever, and the way Bungie did get rid of those planets was spectacular. In the final few hours before the servers were shut down to prepare for Beyond Light's launch, all Guardians were transported into the last city, a place that we only rarely visit, and got to watch the Traveler put itself back together. The event itself had some technical difficulties, like this huge beam of light in one area where you just couldn't see anything, but overall it was a lot of fun. Bungie have been trying to do more of these huge events lately after Fortnite's success like their Travis Scott performance last year. These events bring thousands of people into the game to watch and enjoy. While I don't think Bungie can ever have events as big as Fortnite, it still makes me excited every time they announce one. But let's talk about Beyond Light. For me, Beyond Light was a lot of fun. It was a huge improvement over Shadowkeep, firstly because the story was more interesting and we actually had a villain to try and defeat, and we had a whole new location to explore, Europa. Europa is an interesting place, and Bungie's environmental storytelling really shines bright throughout every location on the planet's surface, from the icy cliffs to the old Braytech building that used to house the secret Braytech facility. All of it is dripping with lore and things to discover, but this expansion mostly focuses on one thing: the darkness. We arrive on Europa because of a distress signal sent out by Varix, the Elixir that used to run the Prison of Elders back in Destiny 1. He's trying to stop his old friend Eramis from forming a powerful army of Fallen to fight back against the Guardians. We've seen this plenty of times before, but this time it's different. This time, Eramis has given the Fallen the power of the darkness, so we fight fire with fire, and gain darkness powers as well. We are also reintroduced to the Exo Stranger, a mysterious character that appeared in Destiny 1 that players had wanted to return for a long time. It's revealed that the Stranger is actually Elsie Bray, daughter of Clovis Bray, who coincidentally was the creator of the Exos, a race of people that you could pick when creating your character originally in Destiny 2 and Destiny 1. So not only do we learn valuable information about the darkness and Eramis, but also get a backstory circled around Elsie, Clovis, Anna Bray, and even the Deepstone Crypt. But I'll go more into detail about the Crypt later. So first, let's talk about Beyond Light as a whole experience. As a single package, I think it's definitely worth the money. but because it was released in a time where a lot of content was being vaulted, it felt like not a lot was added to replace what was taken away. Now that isn't the point of sunsetting these locations and content. Bungie will slowly add new content as they go. They're adding Destiny 1 content to the game right now with the Cosmodrome coming back, and in the newest season 2 old strikes. But at the time of Beyond Light's release, only one new strike was added to the game, and both Crucible and Gambit had majority of their maps sunset, but for some absurd reason didn't get maps based on Europa. Now I don't know if it was because of the pandemic that no new content was added to these game types, and that technically you could say Empire hunts are strikes. They have different power levels and rewards when completing them, but no new Crucible or Gambit maps? Gambit I sort of get, but Crucible is one of the main pillars of Destiny 2 besides strikes. The PvP community has made it known to Bungie that it feels like they don't care that much about the multiplayer anymore, that not adding at least one new Crucible map based on Europa is really strange. Even for me, someone who barely plays Crucible, I sort of expected at least a new map. That's what Bungie is known for. Back in the Halo days, their map design was incredible, and same for Destiny. But it feels like with Beyond Light that wasn't their focus. Obviously with everyone working from home, the expansion wasn't as big as they originally planned it to be, and also probably doesn't help that a lot of people in the community were expecting a Forsaken sized expansion from Bungie, which was impossible for Beyond Light. Bungie no longer has access to funds and support from Activision after they split from them, like I explained in my last video. Yes, Bungie should add more content to these parts of the game, but it'll take time. Bungie also added more difficult activities to some of Destiny's older content with Beyond Light. Lost sectors were often something you could just quickly run through to get kills, and never go back to them for weeks and weeks, but Bungie added both Legend and Master Lost sectors. These work the same as Nightfalls. They have more powerful enemies with shields, add champions that can only be taken down by special weapon mods, but the best part was that Bungie were forcing you to run it solo. Running through them solo gives you a chance to unlock some of the new European specific exotic armor pieces, and these armor pieces are incredible. Mask of Bucharest is amazing on my Hunter. They also added Exo challenges, which a player can run every week to get powerful rewards. So there's a lot to do in Beyond Light, but the biggest thing to do, of course, is the raid. The Deepstone Crypt may have been one of the most anticipated raids in Destiny 2 history, not only because of the absolutely amazing world's first race that happens every time a raid comes out, but because the Crypt had been hinted at since all the way back in vanilla Destiny 1 in 2014. Little did we know that it was going to be even better than we thought. I've always remarked at how absolutely incredible Bungie is at not only map and challenge design, but also just the feel and ambience of anything they do. Last year when I first played the Prophecy dungeon, I was totally blown away at how challenging it was, but its design made me just stop and look on in awe at how beautiful it all looked. The Deepstone Crypt is no different. You have its Braytech facility look with its polished white floors and walls and machines all around the place that you have no idea what they do, to the absolutely incredible spacewalk section of the raid. There is nothing but endless space all around you. The spacewalk is especially my favourite part because it has one of the most beautiful tracks I've ever heard Bungie produce. This is the Deepstone Lullaby. It's an incredible track that feels like it mixes together the orchestral theme from Destiny 1 to the newer, more epic theme of Destiny 2, but also has a little touch of the Halo soundtrack in there. These are the moments that I want more of in Destiny, and I haven't even gotten to the final boss encounter with Taniks, which is such a fun encounter. They even added a way you could farm specific loot from the end chest, which is a new mechanic in Destiny and takes away the frustration of running a raid over and over again trying to get the weapon you want. I feel like Bungie really nailed it with this raid. Sometimes raids can be hit and miss, but they really hit it out of the park with the Deepstone Crypt. And finally, let's talk about the Darkness powers, otherwise known as Stasis. Stasis finally gave us a new ability to play with. We've been stuck with Solar, Void and Arc ever since Destiny 1, so a brand new power to the game was such a big deal. And that power being darkness instead of light, it felt like a whole new era of Destiny was just beginning. Darkness powers felt incredible to play with, the way enemies would freeze and shatter as you shot them, or explode in a huge shatter of ice as you came crashing down on them using a Shadow Dive or the Titan's Super. Plus the abilities were actually upgradable. You could go and complete aspects of Darkness to unlock new grenades and melee abilities, as well as other abilities like giving you an ice overshield. It really did change the game. But in other parts of the game, Stasis made it unbearable to play, and of course I'm talking about Crucible. As I said before, Bungie was working from home during the pandemic, so maybe it fell through the cracks, but the Stasis powers broke the game type. People were freezing all over the place, unable to move and fight back. Usually in PvP, if someone uses their ability, that being Solar, Arc or Void, you can either somehow avoid their attack or try and kill them as quickly as possible. That also means when they pop their super as well. Usually you can kill an opponent if you see them use their super, you just use yours as well. It becomes an even playing field. But with Stasis, if you're hit by any ability, you're immediately frozen in place, unable to move until you break out of it. But by that time, the enemy has probably killed you. Some of you may be saying, just avoid it, but it's hard to avoid it if the attack is following you like the Hunter Super does. The Hunter Super is probably the worst to fight against, and that's coming from a Hunter main. The Super will not only freeze you and kill you, but will follow you around and stick around afterward. I've had moments where I've been killed by a Hunter Super, then been immediately killed by the same Super a few seconds later. And don't even get me started on the Titan's Behemoth Super. They can run around and just continuously smash the ground and kill enemies, but also last forever. So if you're going up against a player that knows where the spawns are, then you have no hope. So yeah, Stasis in PvP needs a rework. But that is a great segue into my next topic, the State of the Game post made by Bungie a week ago. They stated they were working on a fix for Stasis in PvP, and that some of the powers will be nerfed to make it all easier to deal with, so less freezing all the time, I hope. But the State of the Game also expanded on a lot of things, like how Bungie was expanding their offices by opening a huge new studio, and also expanding the Destiny franchise to other media, so maybe a Destiny show in the future? We can hope. But the biggest thing that was announced was the sunsetting of sunsetting. For the past few seasons, we have seen our weapons and armor being sunset after 1 year, basically between each expansion. Sunsetting put an expiration date on every weapon or piece of armor you used, and it felt terrible. Weapons that people loved to use were worthless in 1 year, so you couldn't get too attached to that legendary weapon because you knew it was going away. It's an endless debate in the community whether sunsetting actually works. On one hand, it fixes the meta. If a weapon is super strong and everyone is using it, then Bungie doesn't need to worry about nerfing it. They just wait a year until it's useless and another weapon can take its place. It also keeps the game feeling fresh with new weapons to use every 12 months. But on the other hand, what's the point on trying to get the best rolls in a weapon or try to get targeted loot if it's worthless? So Bungie decided that enough was enough and got rid of sunsetting altogether. To be honest, it's really a surprising move on their part. I thought they were going to stick with it, maybe fine tune it through the next few years. But now that sunsetting is gone, the game just feels more fun all of a sudden. It's as if a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I no longer scramble to get the best weapons and armor as quickly as possible to get all the use out of them. Now I just take my time, and whenever I get a god roll, it really makes it worthwhile because I know it'll be around forever. If only they had made the decision last season though. I miss my perfect paradox. You'll be missed, my friend. And sunsetting also fixes another major problem. The Beyond Light just didn't add enough fun weapons to fill the void of weapons that were taken away. We got the New Year Open weapons, and we got some new weapons in Season of the Hunt, but nothing else. And all those weapons we got just weren't fun. Throughout the entirety of Season of the Hunt's content, I only used Season of Arrival's weapons, and of course adored Lament and the Cloud Strike exotic weapons. But there just wasn't enough legendary gear that stood out to me. Bungie knew it was a problem as well, so they added in new weapons that had previously been sunset back into the game from Forsaken and Shadowkeep. But you couldn't just use your old ones again that you had in your vault, you had to go out and re-earn them. I felt like that was the last nail in the coffin for sunsetting. If this is going to be a thing that continuously happened over and over again, then a lot of people would just stop playing the game because earning weapons just wasn't worth it anymore. So now, with sunsetting gone, we can only look forward to adding new powerful weapons to our arsenal, and that's really exciting. Now, Season of the Hunt and Season of the Chosen, both the two newest seasons after Beyond Light's release. How are they going? Well, if I'm being blunt, Season of the Hunt is one of the worst seasons we have ever had in Destiny 2 in a long time. The entire season was based around going on Wraithborn hunts, which were basically really small lost sectors that you could make your way through then kill a boss in like 2 minutes. They were boring, uninspired crap. And the weapons and armor you got for doing it weren't good either. I feel like Bungie didn't quite know what to do with this season, considering it launched pretty much right after Beyond Light released. I remember the Season of Undying felt really small after Shadowkeep released, and that makes sense. Most of the development team is probably working hard on the huge new expansion, and the season is only meant to extend that content a little bit longer. Where Season of the Hunt did shine, however, was in its story. We finally came in contact with the Crow, a new character in Destiny 2, sort of. The Crow is actually Aldrin Sov, the Prince of the Awoken, brother to Queen Mara Sov herself. He's also the man that killed Cayde 6. Cayde 6 was, and still is, a fan favourite to this day, and his death all the way back in Forsaken was both shocking and brutal. But we got revenge for that death, killing Aldrin ourselves at the end of that expansion, but he was revived by a ghost, which made him a Guardian. Obviously, he lost his memory, as all Guardians do once being revived by a ghost for the first time. He has no recollection of killing Cayde or of you killing him, but now he is under the spider's influence and can't leave lest the spider kills him, so he asks for your help. I don't know how Bungie did it, but they made Crow become my favourite character in Destiny 2. They even made me care for the guy. I hated Aldrin even before he killed Cayde. Me and my friends used to joke about his
good luck getting through the exclusion zone
line from Destiny 1, but throughout the expansion you begin to realise that this isn't the same man anymore. He's different and wants to help. It even appears that the Traveller itself has chosen him to be a warrior of light like we see throughout the Hawkmoon quest. Aldrin Sov is dead, but the Crow took his place, and for the better. The whole Crow storyline is just fantastic though. It's so closely tied with the Hawkmoon quest, the exotic hand cannon we had back in Destiny 1, and it leads through to a massive battle against the Taken and the EDZ. And you not only get Hawkmoon, but also get an exotic ship for your troubles as well. All in all, Season of the Hunt was marred with boring busy work and really crappy loot, but some of the quests and characters really shine through. It was not enough to save the entire season. I still think it was the worst season in Destiny 2 history, but it did pave the way for a much better season, Season of the Chosen. Season of the Chosen, unlike Season of the Hunt, takes everything from the previous seasons that everyone liked and just stuffed it in. We have Umbral Engrams from Season of Arrivals, we have an interesting villain that we haven't had since Destiny 1 from the Taken King and Oryx, we have characters we like, we have those characters having actual arcs throughout the season, and we have interesting weapons that have become some of my favourites, we have targeted loot in Nightfall strikes and Gambit matches, we have an amazing exotic quest that takes you to a derelict Cabal ship floating in space and makes Destiny feel like an alien, and in the end you get a really cool exotic scout rifle. It's all here. We are almost at the end of this season, and every week it feels like it's worth jumping on and playing. And I haven't had that feeling since Season of Arrivals. Keitel is an incredible villain with an interesting backstory and lore attached to her. It's some of the best writing Bungie has done in a long time. And I haven't even talked about the new activity yet, Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds are basically mini strikes. You have to kill a bunch of enemies, complete some random mechanic like throwing these orbs into a generator, then kill a boss. It's super simple, but surprisingly not that boring. I have a lot of fun playing through these missions, and at the time of writing this, the final Battleground has come out and has ended the storyline for the season, but it hasn't finished the storyline with Keitel, Savala and Aldrin. It feels like the beginning of a really interesting story next season, and I'm so excited for it. I think everyone's relationship with Destiny is different. Some people play it non-stop. They grind and grind and grind to get to the highest levels so they can do all the endgame content. Others play a lot, but aren't really bothered about getting to the end super quickly. They find the fun in just playing the game when they get on, and play every now and then, and others like me like to get on every day and try to grind for a bit, play some strikes, play some gambit, maybe play some PvP, then jump off a few hours later. But I think we all have those moments where Destiny just isn't fun. Maybe it's towards the end of a season and all the content is dried up, or maybe other games take up your time instead of Destiny 2. These are all okay things. I'm just hoping that Bungie tackles head-on the problems in PvP and Gambit, and tries to make the content as fun as possible. A few weeks ago, people were using a glitch to do 12-man raids and 6-man nightfalls, and Bungie said they're going to let it continue for a while longer because players are having so much fun doing it. I want Bungie to see the things players enjoy and expand on them like the stuff in Season of the Chosen, to make Destiny the best FPS MMORPG it can be, and I think the things that have been done in the last few months is a step in the right direction. Thanks for watching.